to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz. There he is. And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
I'm back.
And it's May 20th, 2021. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post new videos. And we're all in house today.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not sure what we should do.
Well,
I don't know what to do with my hands right now. Definitely not that. I don't know what to do.
I thought about it.
We've got new lights that are shining down upon us.
Not as orange.
Not as orange.
Yellow,
and they're not lights that were used at the front of like a tugboat during World War II. So they're not super bright and super hot. I was just trying to think of like the most destructive light possible, and that's what came to mind. I don't know.
Some pretty bad light.
Yeah. And we've moved around some of our posters. So this is exciting because I like the energy of talking to people
in person.
Yeah. I feel like it's better, and the reaction time's better, and we don't have to worry about Skype deciding to
I also feel less awkward using my hands when I speak because I hand speaker. So.
Yeah. See, now when you talk with your hands, it just makes your sentences so much better for some reason. It makes me feel better about
sentence
myself.
Seasoning.
Yes, it is sentence seasoning. Okay, so we do have some news to get into. We've all played some games, I think, a little bit here and there. We've played a board game version of a video game.
Yeah.
So I guess we could talk about that. It's not really a board game channel, but I don't know. We set the rules.
I mean, gaming is such a vague word now.
It is.
It'd be more specific if it was video gaming. Then it's more specific. So
this is true.
I think this is acceptable.
Why don't you start us off, Richard?
Okay. Well, I went on vacation a little bit last week, so I was out of town for a couple days, in which I let you borrow my PS5 for a couple days. When I got it back, the only thing I've been doing is I've just been playing Resident Evil some more. I am essentially trying to beat it on all the difficulties, get all the weapons and their infinite ammo, et cetera, et cetera. And I got to tell you, I am doing it in not the most efficient way possible. I wanted to play the game through first time, and I played it through, beat it. And the second, I kind of did things out of order. I didn't really have a plan. I was more focused on, I want this specific weapon with infinite ammo, so I'm going to focus on that. But in doing that, I kind of negated all of the other side stuff I could have done while doing that. And so now what it would take is probably 3 playthroughs to get all of the like difficulty achievements and all that. It's probably going to take me like 5 playthroughs now.
Okay.
Thankfully, with, of course, infinite ammo on particular weapons, it makes things so much faster. And, of course, you get familiar and you play it so much, you know exactly where to go. Nothing really surprises you anymore except for very weird, creepy babies and dolls. But
I've heard a little bit about that.
But so far, like I am still just having a blast with this game. I think that they kind of just took 7 and Resident Evil... threw a little bit of Resident Evil 4 in there.
Okay.
So I think you noticed, you talked to me, enemies drop money and they drop items and stuff when you kill them. And then you can use that item towards a merchant who sells you things. And of course your briefcase has the whole like shifting around items to like make room for everything else. When you get an infinite ammo weapon, which I went for the Magnum, like it's called the Steak Magnum, not as like food steak, but STAKE.
Just firing porterhouses.
Oh, don't shoot my direction, please. Oh, God.
The final weapon is the rocket pistol, and I have not seen what that looks like. I have not seen what it shoots, but I'm very curious about it. But anyways, so I got that, and man, everything else is just that I pick up is just so moot that I just sell it immediately to the merchant.
Okay.
So
interesting.
But there are so many challenges in the game too in order to unlock different things, and it's like, beat the game without using any healing items, or beat the game in less than 3 hours, or beat the game spending less than a certain amount of money and stuff like that. And I'm not going to do every single one of those. I'm only going to do what I set out to do as far as like trophies go and achievements go. So after that, I'm going to be done for a while, and I need to focus on Returnal after that, because I only played that for about a half week before Resident Evil 8 came out, and I dropped Returnal to focus on that. And now I'm focusing on 8 a little too much. I got to get back to Returnal like soon. But that's all I've been doing. I've just been playing Resident Evil 8.
Okay.
We'll talk about Returnal here in a bit.
Yeah.
I did play the opening. So the opening 3 hours of Resident Evil 8 are just really freaking cool. So I wasn't the biggest fan of 7 because I liked the structure of like Resident Evil 2, right? Mm-hmm. There's a little more backtracking and stuff like that. Where Resident Evil 7, it's like you had sections of backtracking, and then you would, I don't remember it well enough, but it's like you had the house, and then you would leave the house and go to like a more linear narrative sequence, and then you got to like the boat, and while you're in that boat, you're going and you were backtracking through each story of the boat, and then you would leave the boat, and there was like another linear sequence. So they sort of ebb and flow between the paces. And I only played a few hours of Resident Evil 8, but I won't spoil anything, but the opening of Resident Evil 8 is sort of like the opening of Quake 4, but good. If that makes sense.
I've not thought about Quake 4 in a very long time.
Neither have I.
That was a weird hat pull there.
But like Quake 4, it's like your character wakes up and then like an explosion knocks him back out, and he wakes up again and there's more battle in the distance, and he like he gets knocked out by another explosion, wakes up again, something else is going on that's crazy. So it starts 4 times over and over again. Resident Evil 8 reminded me of that because it had a bunch of these little tiny things happen that were all really cool and really bad shit crazy, and they all happened within the first like 3 or 4 hours of gameplay, and it's really cool. And they just nail the RE engine. Every game should be made with the RE engine. I mean, at this point, stop all engines, use the RE engine.
That really sucks to hear you say that, because before that, the engine we said that about was Fox Engine.
I know. It was what was the last game made? Was it?
It was Pro Evolution Soccer, I think.
Oh God.
Pro Evolution
you know
Soccer,
what?
yeah.
We're gonna rewind time, and I'm not gonna ask that question. But everything looks great in Resident Evil 8. It's terrifying. It's really creepy. I was telling you about. There's one moment where you're underground in dungeons, and there are these monster zombie guardian things that come after you.
I'm comfortable with calling them ghouls,
and they like drag their swords, and then when they get close to you, they swing their whole body. The animation, you almost stand there just watching the animation because it's so freaking cool to see, because you can see their entire body like swing the sword. So it's really cool. And it's I just hit your laptop, I'm sorry. The enemies drop ammo and stuff, so it feels like it's saying, hey, go ahead and take shots, go ahead and use more ammo than you would, as opposed to other Resident Evils and other survival horror games where you find a magazine and that's it for the rest of the game. You get 10 shots and that's it. But yeah, and I met Lady Dimitrescu, and she, did I pronounce that right? Dimitrescu? Yeah.
Well, yes. She literally says Dimitrescu.
Okay.
And so it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. I'll say it that way.
She's awesome. Yeah, she's really freaking cool. And I put her down as we have like favorite characters. Yeah. And she steals the show. She's not in the game a whole lot, apparently.
No, she's not.
But she steals the show. I mean, she's so freaking cool.
She does, and she's very much Tyrant from Resident Evil 2 at a certain point of the game.
Oh, okay.
And it is very cool because she does parade the halls randomly. And I am on my going to be 4th playthrough of the game, and I still get like, I'll open up the door and she's just there. Oh, whoa, crap!
Still like surprising you with a different.
Yeah, she's still surprising me. And then even then, actually, I just sorry to like butt in and come back to my gameplay, but I was playing last night and realized I missed like 2 whole complete areas I just didn't know about. I mean, they didn't have. One had a secret side boss fight, but I just did not know that place was there, because the pathway I was going on, it was just there's overgrown trees and overgrown like foliage and grass and stuff, and like I just did not know I could go down that way, because it was at a section to where it was kind of like ramping up, so it's like, oh, I got to get to this next section, and I just passed it, and it's whole other like building.
It's almost as though they do that on purpose. Try and sneak one by you.
Yeah, It could just be me not paying attention because I was missing like one.
Flashing neon light. Go this way.
Well, funny enough, in that section of the game, like they do set up like, hey, go this way.
Wow.
Like the final guy you fight is just like, I'm over here. But yeah, I was missing one of the documents because one of the things is to collect all the documents. I was like, where the hell is this place? And they're like, oh, it's at this like windmill like house cabin. And I'm like, what? I've never been there. And so that's how I found it.
Right.
So yeah, no, there are still surprises to the games. As I'm playing it, they may not be incredible surprises, but like I said, if I open the door and Lady D is right there, and it's just like, oh crap, like whoa, I got to figure out. And then there's apparently another cutscene I missed, depending on how you. It's no secret that you have to take out all of these characters.
Yeah.
But the three sisters that rule or that are under Lady D, there's a certain way you can take them out, and if you take them out a certain way, there is another cutscene that you can activate between Lady D and one of the other sisters. And I had no clue about that. I've only seen it on like a TikTok, and I tried to do it, but I didn't get it. So I was like, oh. Okay, it's very cool to know that there's more stuff.
Well, I'll say this about the beginning of, because Resident Evil 7 was the same way, where it had really freaking awesome little tiny sequences. The boss fight with the dad of the family, where he's driving the car in the garage. That whole thing was insane. Yeah, it was so well put together. It was such a cool boss fight. But it's like those characters weren't as, they were just sort of the, I mean, they were the guy from True Detective. I don't think they were as unique or I guess just as unique. But Lady Dimitrescu, it's really freaking cool about, I don't know, just the what's the word I'm looking for? The juxtaposition between someone so evil and yet she's like elegant and what's the proper, I guess is a word, aristocratic, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, what I'm trying to get to is the first few hours of Resident Evil 8 intrigued me more than the first few hours of Resident Evil 7. So anyway. Anything else you want to say about that except for Returnal?
No.
We'll pitch it to Connor. Connor, go ahead, and then we'll talk about Returnal. Connor.
I have been playing a single game in VR a lot because it is just, I don't know, it has just clicked with me. It is Warplanes World War I Fighters.
Oh.
And I don't know what it is about the game, but I'm just really synced in with it. The flight controls, there's different difficulty levels on it, from like arcade up to simulator, where you can full on do aerial like acrobatics with your plane.
So is it controller based? Is it like fake joystick and throttle with your controllers?
Fake joystick and throttle with your controllers.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And it's just World War I. You're a fighter ace in World War I. Here are the missions that you can go on. Do these missions. Then once you do a certain amount, there's like a little mini boss mission where your base is getting attacked, and you just keep repeating this. So far, I haven't gotten very far in the story because I've been jumping back and forth between the Entente and the Central Powers. But the planes control very well. I'm playing it in realistic, which is like halfway between arcade and full-on simulator. So I can do some aerial acrobatics. I can, throttle back my engine, go into a stall, and then do a full spin and, get behind an enemy before they can get into a turn. And it's, I don't know, there's just something fun. I mean, it's one of those games where you start playing the game the way I think the developers intended, which is you're not really watching where you're flying, you're watching your target, and you're positioning your plane with minute control movements to get yourself where you need to be.
Yeah.
And I realized that I wasn't watching where I was flying last night, and I was like, that's probably dangerous. Because I've died a few times. One was getting shot down by anti-air. I just got obliterated. I just got focus fired. I've been shot down a couple times by other fighters, and I've ran into a plane several times. And when you're not watching your gun, you're staring up, back and behind you, watching this fighter that you're chasing, and then suddenly your plane explodes.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Takes you out of it really quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, fun game. Ridiculous.
I've been a little hesitant about trying, because it's on the quest through side quest. There are some fighter plane games, and I've been apprehensive about playing it, and I don't know why. I'm not someone who gets motion sick very easily, so I can handle it. But I think it's just the intimidation factor of like having to know what to do at what time, like when you're fighting or when you're flying something like that. But it's very interesting to now I have after hearing you, and now I have the kind of urge to be like, well, maybe I should give it a shot because that sounds fun. and it's great that you say that the game actively makes you change the way you play rather than watching your target instead of watching where you're flying. I think that's really interesting.
Well, and a lot of fighters do this in VR. Elite Dangerous has the radar or whatever it is, the scanner in the middle of your ship, so you're not tracking your target so much with your head, right? Switch to visual scanning, as the leader of Gold Team would say. But when you add in that dynamic of like moving your head, and you don't think about it, it's subconscious, but you're looking 90 degrees up, and your hand movements are relative to where you're looking, not where your plane is heading in the moment. It's a really cool thing to experience because you do it without thinking because it just makes sense. But that's tough to do with a controller where you have to like free look or whatever, you know. So not impossible, but yeah, and that's VR. It's a really simple idea, a few mechanics done really well, and it's a really freaking cool game. Yeah.
And so in the realistic mode I'm playing as, for just reference, it just shows you where the next enemy is located, like directionally, like it'll be left, up, to your right, down, and it doesn't tell you distance or anything like that. So you have to actually go in scanning. I had a mission last night where I was doing a bombing raid on an oil refinery, and I was flying over the oil refinery, so I had no trackers for any of the fighters around me because the closest target was the refinery. So I was like, fucking bomb.
Yeah, take them out.
And you have to actually
grab the bombs and throw them out the side of your
with
plane.
your hands.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
cool.
That's
cool.
really awesome.
And you were telling me about the flares.
Yes. So you have a flare gun. And the flare gun is used for against zeppelins and barrage balloons. And I was in a night mission, and I was supposed to protect my the I'm gonna say British because they're all British planes that you fly as. British artillery from a zeppelin raid. And it was at night. And there's fighters around, so I'm flying around this zeppelin. Shooting at it at a flare gun, just like off to the side, reloading and just shooting, hoping they hit as I'm chasing a plane around, shooting it.
So you got one hand on the stick, and another hand with a gun, and you're like looking two different directions. That is so freaking cool. That's so cool. I was gonna. What you need to try is VTOL, because
I'm going to get into more. I've played VTOL on your account here, and that's above me right now.
VTOL is super, like, because then it becomes you have to lock your targets.
Yeah.
And as an engagement with an enemy fighter starts at 30 kilometers.
No, thank
it's
you.
like two anti-air missiles will pass by each other, and you just have to like drop at the last. It's so freaking sick.
No, thank you. I'll stick to
that scene
slow and steady
in Top Gun. In Top Gun, when Tom Cruise is chasing after Tom Skerritt, and he's like, "Come on!" And he's like, "This kid's good." You know that scene. That is literally VTOL when you're like trying to get guns on another enemy fighter.
I will stick to this game and War Thunder so I can cockpit fly.
War Thunder is very good too. Yeah.
Cockpit fly BF-109 and circle fight with British fighters.
When I saw Dunkirk, the first thing I did was go home, install War Thunder to fly a Spitfire. That's all I wanted to do. But anyway, I'm glad you're enjoying VR, as everyone should.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to talk about?
If you can handle the motion sickness.
Yes, of course.
No, that is all I've played other than some tabletop games with you.
Yeah, the World of Tanks tabletop game, which is fun. I tracked your
so
SU.
much fun when your
I got an
tank gets
SU,
tracked and can't move at all.
I got
for
an
the rest of the
SU.
game.
What is it? 132.
100.
I got an SU 100, which is a Russian anti-tank tank. It's extremely powerful. And at the beginning of the game, I tracked it so he couldn't move. Which tank destroyers can't move very fast anyway. So if they're tracked,
they fire in
it's
one
even
direction.
Fire in one direction. So anyway, so how you do it in this game is if you get tracked, you have to roll a die to see if you can repair it. It happened at the beginning of the game. The game lasted.
Happened on turn 2.
The game lasted maybe an hour and a half. He never was able to repair this poor little tank. And so,
and at one point, the crew bailed out too.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have that option in the board game, like of just.
Yeah. It was just a card.
It was a critical hit. And
Okay. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was able to get them back in the tank so that they could at least fire forward. But then they died the next.
But in any case, I felt bad because we got this great tank, gets tracked, completely useless.
Fired once that game.
Okay. So Returnal.
Yeah.
So Returnal. I really, 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 really enjoyed.
You've been thinking about it, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And so I think there are a lot of interesting ways to go about talking about Returnal. I've seen stuff talking about the difficulty. Mm-hmm. There's the save issue, which I do think is an issue. I understand like it's difficult to fix, so I'm not going to sit here and say how could they do that or anything like that. But yeah, the game is. I played definitely the game I played the most was Returnal. I'm a big roguelite fan. So what I got out of it was a lot of fun. It's sci-fi horror. At first I thought it wasn't so much sci-fi horror, and then you discover some things and it becomes a little more sci-fi horror.
Yeah, probably more psychological horror than anything.
Than it started out with. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And once you get the mix of enemies and the different types of attacks they throw at you, and it really starts to become a bullet hell. Mm-hmm. Oh man! And you get into the zone, and that game already looks really good.
Yeah,
yeah, it's impressive.
The one piece that I'm missing with that game is apparently the 3D audio, because apparently Returnal is one of the premier titles that uses 3D audio like to its max, and you know, you can't explain audio to somebody just like I can't explain like the DualSense to like Connor, like how it feels, you know. I mean, and we had this discussion even when the Wired article had the description of like how it worked. It sounded silly, like like the, you know, going through the mud feels sloshy and stuff like it's like that sounds dumb.
Yeah,
but yeah, like guys on you know Reddit or whatnot are talking about the 3D audio and how like they can actively. One guy was saying that he could theoretically play the game with his eyes closed because the 3D headset with the audio like enabled him to know exactly where every single enemy was, even if there were multiple enemies. Like that's how like detailed it was. Which conjecture. I don't know, or conjecture. I have no idea.
Maybe an exaggeration.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But anyways, but yeah, like Returnal is just one. I told you, not Connor. Sorry, Tyler.
There you go. You got there.
Don't worry, just been doing this podcast for years. No
you know, I've just been up for over.
I'm sorry.
Long day, man. I haven't even finished my coffee. I told you when we started talking about this game that I think that it's a bit of a boon that, unfortunately, for most of the people who see the trailer for Returnal or even see the gameplay for Returnal, they may think that it looks like an awesome game that they would want to pick up for their PS5. The boon part of it is its difficulty is very in your face. And as a roguelike, it's supposed to be difficult. But a lot of roguelikes aren't bullet hells either.
Yeah.
and bullet hell shooters are some of the most difficult like games out there. It requires intense concentration and pinpoint accuracy as far as your button presses, knowing what abilities you have at what time. And I think that's going to turn off a lot of people in a different way than Dark Souls might turn off somebody. Because Dark Souls, is difficult. I don't think it's particularly difficult. I think it is a game about patience and a game about reading your enemy rather than something that is difficult. If you can do those two things, you're going to have a much better time navigating through Dark Souls or any of the Souls-like games than you would other titles. But Returnal is hard. And I had the first boss that you encounter, I had 2 revive items, and that still wasn't enough. Beat that boss, and I escaped with a sliver of health left. And actually, that boss has, so when the boss appears, of course, long health meter, and then you have 3 squares above that health meter. And it turns out when you get rid of one bar, the next bar goes up, and those bars are a little misleading because when you get rid of the second bar, that third bar is his last life. But the way its indication is, it makes it seem like he still has one more to go, which I think they should change that. But anyways, and I think it's unfortunate, especially with a game at $70 from Housemarque, which I think we've learned that was not their decision. It was Sony's decision to make it $70.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough sell, and I think there would be a lot of people disappointed purchasing this game and realizing how difficult it is, especially with the no save features and whatnot. So.
And not to mention that it's a roguelike. I don't know how to start the conversation about like should a genre not be premium priced? Because while you may get, I've gotten 30 hours out of Hades, right? But of those 30 hours, maybe 10 of them have been unique. The other 20 have been the same enemies, upgrading my weapons, sure, but it's the same weapons, the same rooms. But that's something I enjoy. I don't think it's bad game design. I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal, and it works.
Especially when there's storytelling to supplement those hours that you put in.
Yeah. And I think, and we talked about this with Hades. Hades spoiled us because, as far as I know, there is not another roguelike/roguelite out there that has the same sort of characterization, the same sort of continuously new dialogue that Hades has. There's plenty of roguelikes that have the same progression, have the same variety of weapons and enemies and stuff like that, but it had so much dialogue and so many little tiny subplots between the characters, and it was so much fun to see that play out. That's what rose Hades. That's what made it one of the best roguelikes ever made, I think. I don't think that's controversial at all.
I think a point towards Hades that really benefited them in that is the source material is very deep.
This is true.
For Greek mythology.
This is true. And they were really creative with it too, because I think that's something where I think that can go either way.
Yeah.
Because you can just make a game and it's like it's the Greek gods, and then there's nothing there. But they really filled it up with meat and potatoes of characterization and writing and stuff. And so many of them have similar, like Poseidon and Zeus and Achilles all have similar personalities, but they find ways to make them distinct, right? They're all brash and gung-ho and self-assured and stuff like that. But Supergiant Games found a way to sort of give them each different personalities. But anyway, back to Returnal. I noticed that in Returnal, the character narrates her experiences a lot, which I love. I think that I say I want that to happen more in games. I understand it's probably really difficult because you have to write lines and then you have to code or script when the lines are going to happen, which is not, I'm assuming, is not easy. But when she reacted to some of the strange things that she saw, I really appreciated that, because I think it not only started to round out her character, but it gave me something to look forward to when I came across something new, wondering if she was going to say something, and she did. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's fun. To
that point, I think it's also beneficial for the setting of the game that she is on a, Xeno planet that has not been discovered anymore. So not only is she there for her own particular reasons, but she's also essentially, scouting and discovering.
Yeah.
So I think it is helpful and fitting that she has that constant self-monologuing in the game.
I would agree. As to the difficulty question, I think, so the save thing, I can see why it's difficult because the way the game does not work like Hades, where you enter a room. Well, I guess it does. When you enter a room, all the enemies are there, and you can't leave the room till all enemies are gone, right?
No, actually, some rooms
you can leave.
Most rooms you can leave, but there are specific challenge rooms. They don't tell you it's a challenge room, but like the doors will lock behind you, and it's like, oh, you got to get past these waves before you can leave.
I think what helps Hades is that when you walk into a room, your progress was saved. So you can shut off the console right there, and when you start it back up, even if you're 2 hours into a new run, you're appearing right in that room. Whereas in whatchamacallit, in Returnal, it's like if you set up a save point, then right before you get to the boss, you can run back, you could backtrack to the save point, save your progress or something. And so I'm not going to sit here and try to solve the problem, but I'm just trying to say that I could see why trying to figure out how to make a save system would be more difficult, because so much of the map in Returnal is open to you for backtracking and stuff like that. And it doesn't sort of block your progression the same way Hades does, where you're always moving forward, and then as soon as you get into a room...
okay. Oh, that's what you're saying. You can't go back into the past room.
You can't, not in Hades.
Okay, right. Okay, I see what you're saying now. So, since Returnal is open-ended, and you can kind of go back to it. Sorry, that was a weird sound.
But I do feel like there should be some form of save.
Yeah.
Just because...
Well,
runs and roguelikes can get really long.
In my experience with Returnal, I know of 3 different locations that frequently pop up in the runs that can be used as a pseudo save point, so to speak. You have, throughout the map that you uncover, you have teleportation marks.
Yeah.
That you can just fast travel between. I mean, I'm not a game developer, but I mean, you theoretically could possibly use those as like your auto save areas. There is always a room that you come up to that will have a large circular room with a chest inside of it that you can get your weapon from. That can be one. There is even a specialized room, as the third example, a specialized room where there is a store for you to buy stuff from.
Yeah.
Like,
so maybe you buy a save there.
Yeah,
and Housemarque has said that they're experimenting, or they're looking at options. So
sure.
But I would think that yes, because runs are long, and you don't want to have to close a run because you want to play a different game or something like that.
I can tell you, runs are long already as they are, but they get longer because I'll tell you what, and I don't mean to spoil this for you or too much, but there are 4 biomes. And I got to the boss of the second biome, and if you die, you go all the way back to the first biome, and you have to do it all over again. And depending on how good you are, or how fast, or how lucky you are, RNG is still around. That can take forever. That can take forever because you could just not have it like that run. And I've definitely had very good runs compared to very bad runs. And that is definitely a frustrating thing about Returnal. I'm not frustrated by it when I play it. I don't know if it's still because I am on that like brand new release game high, or if it's just something that doesn't bother me too much. But I know people have nowadays precious time when it comes to their gaming, so I think it's just more or less a quality of life thing that people are asking for rather than anything else.
And I also think the context of what Returnal is right now, and its launch title for the PS5, essentially. It didn't come out when the PS5 launched.
Launch window.
But its launch window. It's one of the first big titles, right? And much in the same way that Bloodborne was sort of a launch window game for the PS4, and Bloodborne is a Souls-like, but people I think are more open to Souls-like. Casual audiences may be more open to. I'm saying this based purely on intuition, because at least some form of progression, where there's forms of progression in roguelikes, but it's you start the entire game over again. Yeah. So there may be less of a patience there. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, so I think that context has to be taken into consideration too. But I think from what I've played with the game, I think it's great so far. But I sympathize with people who don't like roguelikes, but I obviously don't think a roguelike by nature is bad, just because you're restarting the game or anything like that, or because it can be difficult or frustrating.
Right.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found right beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you are feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
Deep Silver has founded a new free radical to work on TimeSplitters. In a statement posted to Twitter, Deep Silver said, quote, "You asked and we listened. We have been working on plans to bring the TimeSplitters franchise back to life and are pleased to let you know that we are setting up a new Deep Silver development studio to do just that. Free Radical Design is reforming and will be headed up by industry and TimeSplitter veterans Steve Ellis and David Doak." End quote. Development on the new game has not started, so obviously we have no idea when release is going to happen or if it's going to do it next couple of years. No idea. Platforms, anything. So, have any of us played a TimeSplitters?
Nope, I had to look it up.
I played a little bit.
Okay. The only reason I know of TimeSplitters, and I know it, I've always perceived it as like a cult game that a lot of people really enjoyed. But Free Radical was also one of the studios that was making Star Wars Battlefront 3. And it was like one of the canceled Battlefront 3s that had the prototype version or footage leaked like in 2013 or whatever. So that's the only reason that I know of Free Radical or whatever. But I think this is interesting just because I really wish more studios would do this kind of thing. And this is a topic we talk about a lot. There are a lot of games that could be remade and it would be amazing. And I don't know why more studios don't. And video games as a medium have this innate ability where you could make the same exact game with updated graphics, maybe change a few things around. It feels a bit better.
Untitled Remastered.
There you go. And people
Just give me the same game. Make it look pretty.
And people will buy it all over again.
That is what I've said that for a lot of everyone has said that for a lot of games. But man, Resident Evil 2 was one of those. Just make the same game, but better graphics, but prettier. And I mean, for the most part, I mean, they did that, and it was like, yeah, all right, thanks. I mean, of course they made definitely large changes, but it wasn't anything that
fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could look at both of those games and be like, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, cut out the fluff or whatever. But
which one thing about the Rome Total War Remastered, which I find a little surprising, is it's $30, and it's the HD remaster, but they tacked on both expansions and complete overhauls of all 3 games.
Oh wow.
So it's an incredible deal.
Yeah,
go buy it.
That is really interesting. I didn't know it was only $30.
Yeah.
Do the cheat codes still work?
Yes.
Awesome.
Nice.
And if you use the cheat codes, they disable Steam achievements on your on that save.
Who cares about those? Sorry,
A
Richard.
lot of people.
You were on a train of thought there.
TimeSplitters is weird.
Oh yeah, so you're the only person here with experience with TimeSplitters.
It's a first-person shooter.
Okay.
I played it. It didn't blow me away. People like it. The story mode is good. It has very wacky humor because it's about time traveling. And so it's like you have this guy who's very... I don't want to use the phrase Duke Nukem-esque, but he's stereotypical badass
Early 2000s action hero.
Yeah. But he knows, that's the purpose of it. So it's him going through time and he interacts with characters that are equally as wacky as him. And the multiplayer was very popular. You could play as any character in the entire thing.
That's fun.
You could even I think you could play as monkeys and cows and stuff so it is weird, but
Sparrow
honestly, I think it is it's cult. When it was out, I don't remember anybody talking about that game in my high school days when it was released, and it was only up until probably in the 2010s, early 2010s, late 2000s, that people were like, TimeSplitters is a really good game, and it's oh, okay. But sure. And these guys only made 5 games, and one of them was Haze. So Go for it, I guess.
Yeah. So
I think it was. Sorry, real quick.
No, it's fine.
I think it will be somewhere along the lines of like the Destroy All Humans remake. Like that came out already, and it's already almost a budget title. Like, and yeah, it's selling. I think it just hit over 1 million, but it's not like it's not going to blow people away nowadays.
And I think so. I may have been a little. You know what? No, I'm not a little too harsh because it is a crime against humanity that we do not have a Metal Gear Solid HD or no, Twin Snakes doesn't count. Don't give me Twin Snakes. That we do not have a remake of Metal Gear Solid.
I want to interrupt, please.
Yes, go ahead.
So,
or sorry, let me interrupt your interruption,
go ahead.
and then you go back to your interruption.
I'm going to interrupt your interruption.
And it is also a crime that Castlevania, which by the way, season 4 thus far, phenomenal.
I need to finish season 3.
Phenomenal. I won't say anything else. Phenomenal.
I've only seen like the first 3 episodes, but the entire time I'm like, oh, this is it. Like this is great. You know. So,
but it's ridiculous that of all the video game adaptations that have ever existed, Castlevania may have the very best one. And what the hell is Konami doing right now?
Nothing.
Besides nothing. And they've got this brilliant opportunity when an IP that it was dormant for years, essentially, to mass audiences, is one of the best animes on Netflix.
Yeah.
And Konami's doing shit all with it. And that is so frustrating.
One of the best mature shows, too. Like, that's strangely deep in its vampire politics. And
it's really good.
And especially one... Isaac in Castlevania Curse of Darkness, the video game, because that takes place with Hector and Isaac. Isaac is this super flamboyant, white, red-haired guy that's like super like, come on, man. Like that's and they changed his ethnicity. He's now a black man, and he has different ideals, and he is like my favorite character
He's
on the show.
fascinating.
He is so fascinating.
He's a little evil. He's a little good.
Yes.
You really don't know.
And it's like that meme of that girl who's like, no. Well, all right, yeah, like anytime Isaac speaks, it's like,
yes,
Exactly. Great villain.
So, right,
exactly. Yes,
So,
yes.
ugh.
Anyway, so I'm sorry for interrupting your
No,
interruption.
that's fine.
Go ahead.
I honestly want lots of remakes or remasters of games. I do think that there are games that deserve to be remastered, but only they don't need to spend too much time on the remaster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So, like, for instance, if you're going to remaster or remake Metal Gear Solid, do the whole fucking thing. Like, go all out.
Yeah.
But it's like, TimeSplitters, it's like, okay, well, you
HD
need to do a
remake.
couple things here. Yeah, here and there.
I can see what you're saying.
But I'm going to go back to Metal Gear Solid because I thought about this the other day and I want to mention it.
Go for it.
Metal Gear Solid, but VR.
Oh
But
my
hold on, but not in the way you think. I want
the camera angles?
the same camera angle looking down, because if you remember playing Metal Gear Solid, you had the map outline, but you had black all around. So it's like, it'll be like looking into like a cardboard box and you see
That is a
Snake
genius
walking
idea.
around, but in VR. And
That
it's
is
like,
a genius
I want
idea.
that. It's like a pop-up book. It'll be like a pop-up book, but
You don't got to pitch it to me, man.
I know, yeah.
Like a Konami out there.
Yeah.
You sold him when he said remake.
yeah, well, yeah.
And then you said VR. It's like, yeah, I mean, yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think another game that would just, especially with how Doom was sort of rebooted, I think Fear would just be so good.
Yeah.
I think a remake of Fear, because Fear was a little more, in some ways, was a little more grounded, and I don't want to say realistic, but taken seriously. It had some silliness to it that I still to this day do not like. But the rest of Fear was phenomenal, and I think if you redid Fear, you could have such an awesome story with great gameplay. You could change the bullet time, make that work, the destruction, everything like that. Like I still think, and someone owns Fear. I don't know, WB. Somebody owns the IP, but they're too worried about other crap or whatever. Anyway, no, yeah, that VR idea. That's a what do they say? $50 50-cent piece idea. I don't know. Anyway,
I'd buy that for $1.
yeah. Are we good to move on?
Yes, Fear was what, 2006, right?
2005 or 2006?
2005,
Okay.
published by Warner Bros.
Anytime I think of, because that era, particularly Fear and Condemned, anytime I remember them in my mind, like I visualize them as fat. like squish character girl. Like that's weird.
Yeah, I don't blame you because that was the resolution back then, right? So things were like fuzzier and sort of weird looking and whatnot. Anyway, okay, moving on. New World has addressed concerns over microtransactions. So Amazon Games' New World is an MMO that we've talked about a couple times.
Filthy colonizers.
currently in alpha. I can't find exactly where the worries started. There are a couple sort of weird conflicting reports, but talk of an in-game store appeared within New World, whether it was in it was by official means, so I don't know if it was a forum post or a blog post or where what was, but talk of an in-game store appeared, and it was enough that it created enough worry that studio director Rich Lawrence posted a lengthy statement on Twitter. I'm going to read all of it. It's a little lengthy, but there's a lot of stuff to get to here. Quote, questions have come up recently from our alpha patch notes discussing an in-game storefront. Our plan in having a store is to create an outlet for players who find enough value in store items that they are happy to purchase them. Our plan is not, and never will be, to create a feeling that store items are necessary to enjoy the game. All players will be able to play the full game experience we ship without having to make store purchases. The more players who are able to experience all of our exciting in-game content and game modes, the healthier the overall game experience will be for all players, end quote. So all items in the store at launch will be cosmetic, quote unquote, in nature. As the game goes forward, they will test ideas on how to offer quality of life items for mechanics like rested XP and fast travel, both of which you can get, according to them, in-game and in-store. They say their intention is not to offer an advantage that imbalances the game, and that they understand that line is based on player interpretation. They are also contemplating a battle pass as well as optional expansions that would have separate costs. Here's where things get kind of interesting. On Twitter, someone commented on that last line, the line that says, the more players who are able to get to the end game, the better we can make the end game, right? Because more people are playing the end game, so they have a bigger data set. So someone commented on that line saying it sounded like they wanted to rush people to the end game via boosts, right? So it's like, here's a boost, get to the end game, we can make the end game better. The New World account responded saying, quote, it isn't about rushing people to the end game, it is about supporting people who don't have as much time to play and helping them reach the end game with the time available to them, end quote. Okay.
Is this just time savers all over again?
Go ahead.
That's just not your target audience then. Like, why are you... Anyways, sorry. No, that's just my...
This is time savers. This is XP boost time savers.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
And I don't know how to approach this topic without sounding, because when Ubisoft frames this as a time saver, and if you say no, that's BS, there are going to be people that I think look at you or me in that case as someone who's a jerk. It's like, that's fine. Screw you. I don't have time to play, grind 10 levels in Assassin's Creed. But the thing is the reason you have to grind those 10 levels is because the game was designed that way.
Yes.
And even if you don't design a game to make 10 levels hard to grind through, if you put microtransactions in a game that are time savers, you could also just put those things inside the game itself, right? Yeah. There's no reason to offer. There's no reason to take money back for them, right? If you're so concerned with players who don't have enough time, offer those things in game. Like, I don't know. To me, that just makes more sense. If your goal is not about rushing to people that are in game or whatever, it's more about this egalitarian. Not everyone has the same amount of time. Well, okay, put it in the game for free. Make it easier. Yeah. I don't like. I think that's such a bad excuse, and it's such BS, because these companies do not care, and if anything, what they want is the people that are going to spend ridiculous amounts of hours in the game, because those people are also going to spend a ridiculous amount of money. Now, again, if you spend $1,000 on microtransactions in Apex Legends or War Thunder or whatever, that's fine. That's your money. You can spend it how it is. But on the corporate side of that, on the business side of that, we had this discussion last week. There is, I think, ethical and just straight up freaking integrity problems with that, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think consumers can do what they want to do, but I think that's just a really bad excuse, and I think it's been covered a lot, and I want it to go away. Go ahead, Connor. I'm sorry.
It's not about rushing people to the end of the game. It's supporting people who don't have as much time to get there. Is Amazon's Jim Ryan, we're doing it for the kids. You're doing it for business. You're not doing it to help people get to the end game.
Yeah.
There, like you said, there's 800 different ways to do it so that they don't have to pay extra. Mm-hmm. And you're deciding to take the option where they have to pay extra to get to the end game with your support, not, rushing them there, but, guiding them along, getting them to the end at a more reasonable pace because they don't have enough time to do it. So you're helping them get it there. You're rushing them. You're getting them to the end game so you can get that other data.
You look like you're about to
I'll go
drop a Richard, just big giant like.
I'll go in a second. You first.
Okay, so I'm gonna quote Office Space because I think I'm gonna disagree with you there just a little bit. That's the second week in a row I've done that too. I'm sorry, I won't do it next week. So I disagree with that person on Twitter because I think when they said the more people that get to the end game, I think that does make sense. It makes the bigger data set that you have, right?
It makes sense, but again, the way that they're getting to the ending that makes sense is the one way
by offering those microtransactions
that cost money rather than the 100 other ways that don't cost money.
Yeah, and I guess, I think, you know what? I think you're right. But I don't.
They've been air quotes experimenting with rested experience.
Yeah.
Every game does rested experience generally the same way. As long as you're not in an active combat zone, if you're in a city, you get rested experience. There you go. Problem solved.
But I don't think their goal is to try and pressure people into getting to the end game. I think this is
they're just trying to get more money out of people.
Yes, and the people that don't have time, I don't think are going to spend money to get to the end game. I think the people that do have time to play 1,000 hours in the end game are going to be the people that buy the microtransactions to get to the end game.
Yeah.
And
which I hope that's a very, very small population of people.
And I don't have any evidence to back that up, but intuition. I don't know, because if you don't have a lot of time to play video games, you're not going to play the video games that I think are trying to
get you to spend a lot of time in them.
That are geared to trying to get you spending a lot of time in them. Yeah, exactly. But I want to emphasize back a point about Assassin's Creed. So the discussion about Assassin's Creed, right, was like, all right, you have a 10-hour sequence and it's really grindy. Mm-hmm. So Assassin's Creed sells you these time savers. And so then the discussion becomes, hey,
it's still not fast enough.
Now it's 9 hours.
No, then the discussion becomes, okay, you made that 10-hour sequence grindy on purpose.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
to incentivize the microtransactions, right? So you made a problem and sold a solution to the problem, right? Now, Ubisoft would say, no, we're not doing that. They are time savers. But then I would say, okay, but why not just take that 10-hour sequence out of the game completely?
Yeah.
You are making the game. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you can make it however you want and as player-friendly as you want without the worry of having to sell people time savers.
Exactly.
So it is such a bad excuse because even if your experience is not grindy, even if it's super laid back, even if it's super laid back, you could make it even more laid back because you can make it however you want, mm-hmm. right? So I think it's just a really horrible excuse, and I hate it. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed is a great. The last couple games. Well, I haven't played Valhalla. I have Valhalla.
Odyssey is fantastic.
I don't intend on playing it. Odyssey is fantastic. I do still think though Odyssey is a really great 10 to 15 hour piece of taffy that's been stretched to 60 to 70 hours. And even with like the double, because you can't finish the game unless you reach level 50, right? Like you have to reach level. I think that's something
you can, but it'd be a very uphill climb because either Cassandra or Demetrius. the male or female
one cares.
antagonist.
About him.
Yeah, that should.
Oh yeah, and before we go on, let's remember that the reason Cassandra or Dimitri exists is
Whatever his
because
name is.
a bunch of the testosterone-driven meatballs at freaking Ubisoft were like, women can't sell a game, while Horizon Zero Dawn was just like everywhere that freaking Sean Lyon went. There was just dollar bills everywhere he went when freaking Horizon Zero Dawn came out. But apparently you can't sell a game with a woman. Ubisoft is a bunch of morons, and they treat their employees horribly. Continue, Connor. I'm sorry.
What I was saying is the final boss is level 50, and you can try,
Right.
but it's going to be an uphill climb.
Sure.
And when I say Ubisoft, I mean the executives, because game developers are great, artists are great. They weren't doing the bad stuff. Yves Shimon, I'm looking at you though.
I'm wondering why we didn't get into that today, but don't worry. We'll
Get into was there an
there was a
update?
new report today, yeah. Update.
Oh, I missed this.
Yeah, you did. They apparently have not done anything.
Are you?
Shocker.
Where did we see this?
It was all over. Actually, it was trending for a bit. Yeah, like hold Ubisoft accountable was like the trending thing.
Oh,
like today.
I think a YouTuber made a video.
Well, there's an article too that I saw. But anyways, so what I wanted to get is I wanted to compare the two groups of people that I have experienced throughout my years of game retail and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's about supporting people who don't have as much time to play and helping them reach the end game. That is 100% code for easy money. Those are not the gamers that they want to hold on to. Those are the long-term players, the people who want to, who have the time.
Yep.
The ones that they are selling these quick, upgrades, whatever.
Time savers.
Time savers, yes. Those are the people who are going to spend that money impulsively and then drop the game. Like they're going to drop the game regardless. Doesn't matter. That's just easy money for them. That is something that GameStop did and still does. Pre-orders. It's astounding how many people pre-order a game and never pick it up. So that's free money. That's for like people paid their $5. Like, oh yeah, here's $5 to hold this game for me. And just throughout the years I've worked at GameStop, like there's been so many people who never picked up like that game. So that is now $5 free that GameStop has. And eventually that gets filtered out because if you don't pick it up in a certain amount of time, then whatever. You can get it back, if you go and ask, but hardly anybody ever does. So those are two groups of people that are similar in the sense that like it is just those are the people that they want to get that easy money from. Because the time saver is what, $5? And if somebody decides to pay for that time saver and within a week they drop the game because their interest goes to something else,
Yeah.
it's $5 free.
Yeah.
They still got your money. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I see that.
I think you're right. I think Connor's right. I think it's important to remember that these games are not made, or these games are made for retention and that long tail monetization. And so, I guess in this sense, Amazon knows what it's doing.
They do.
because
It's the one point of video games that they understand.
Apparently, it's
how to make money.
It's the one thing they understand is we need to copy all these other free to play. I don't know if New World's going to be free to play or not, but all these live service, blah 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 blah, vomit.
And you better believe that New World is going to be plastered all over Twitch.
Oh, and I'm sure it's going to be super popular, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to make a ton of money. And I have no idea if it's going to be any good or not, but I hope it's good because I don't want developers to fail. I never root against developers. I root against executives all the time, Yves. But other than that, I don't root against developers. And so I hope it succeeds, but I definitely root against executives and business models. Anything else we would like to say?
I feel like you're Robert De Niro in that old movie, The Fan, like where he's stalking Wesley Snipes' baseball character because he wants to he's like on the verge of killing him. It's like that's you and like Yves. Like,
Hold on. I'm not gonna do anything to Yves. I'm sorry. Hey, when you are asked,
you're definitely not impressed.
when you are asked,
by his
when
job.
you are the CEO of
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it.
One of the big.
Sorry. Well, back then up, I realized what I said. I was like, wait.
Oh, good lord!
I got a thing.
Let me call the police on myself.
Where was I going to go before you made a death threat just now? Okay, so I want to make this point. Just to make it, we all know it, but it just bears repeating. Yves Jamal was asked, either you didn't know, which you're the CEO, so that looks bad. You did know, which you're the CEO, and that looks bad.
Worse.
Or you knew some of it and not all of it, so you were kind of kept in the dark, but a little bit in the light. In which case, you're the CEO, so it looks bad. And which option was it? And Yves was like, new DLC for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and just okey-doked his way out of that. Like he was Adrian Peterson a la 2008. It's freaking ridiculous. And the man, he should be under more scrutiny than he is right now for sure. But I'm glad that was that was trending. So, yeah. Are we ready to move on to tidbits?
Yeah.
Tidbits! Hooray! Richard, what you got?
Red Dead Redemption 2 VR mod has been released today on early access.
Oh, God.
What?
So Luke Ross, who is a VR modder, he has previously modded No One Lives Forever 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5 for VR, has released his early access version of Red Dead Redemption 2 VR mod. So there's already some gameplay videos up, and you can check that out.
Where do you find this on?
The Upload VR, and then there's a guy who does YouTube channels on VR stuff. So you can just put his name, Luke Ross, like Luke Ross VR mod Red Dead 2.
Oh yeah, I'm looking it up on.
Oh, that's
Upload VR.
Oh man, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that is. I just got a VR headset too. I might get lost in the Wild West.
Oh, yeah, of course. Also, there's like the GTFO VR mod, and then there's also Alien Isolation VR mod. There's tons of stuff.
The Alien
GTFO, I
Isolation.
would just shit myself.
Oh, yeah, man.
The Alien Isolation VR mod is phenomenal. It's really good. And for the video I made, I had to let the xenomorph kill me a few times. As much as you think you'd get used to that, it is still a little like, every single time. But man, stalking an animal, hunting an animal in VR up in like the Grizzlies and Red Dead 2, that would be a sight to behold.
You know what would be absolutely terrifying?
A bear?
Stalking an animal, then getting attacked by a mountain lion.
Do you have other tidbits?
Yeah.
Real quick. Sorry.
No,
real quick.
Whatever tidbits I have, please feel free to we'll discuss.
A quick story about Red Dead.
Yeah.
So we moved out of a house when I was playing Red Dead 2, and so we were having people it was out of an apartment, so where people were coming into the apartment and checking it out, whatever. So anyway, I was playing Red Dead 2 one day, and I was at the house. I tried to leave it when people would come and check it out, but this time I couldn't. So people come in, they're walking around. So I'm exploring, so I'm not doing anything where it's like gang shootouts or there's gonna be people hung from trees or something. I'm out in the woods, and there's a random NPC out there. So I'm like, oh, this is weird. So anyway, so these people walk, and they're like, oh, hi, we're going to look at the house. I'm like, sure. And they walk down the hallway. And as soon as they walk down the hallway, a bear appears out of nowhere, just mauls the crap out of this NPC. So I missed one of the most awkward situations ever by a couple seconds because this bear happened to spawn 3 seconds after these people walked down. But I literally turned around and it was like, ah! All right, anyway, sorry, Richard, tidbits.
That's all right. So I'll preface this by saying I don't justify things that Nintendo does, only because I think people should know better. People should see this stuff coming. But this one actually got me really angry. So Zelda Skyward Sword HD remaster is releasing alongside a new amiibo that locks a quality of life feature behind $25 of this amiibo. So in Zelda Skyward Sword, you have two planes of where you can go. You have the sky and then you have the ground. When you're on the ground and you run out of materials and stuff, it's like, oh, I got to get back up to the sky and go to the store, buy some stuff. In the original game, you could only do that at these specialized statues. You couldn't do that at all, anywhere you wanted. Mm-hmm. This amiibo allows you to go back to the sky whenever you want, at any point you want. And then when you use it in the sky, you'll get transported back to the same spot that you used that amiibo on. So they included that quality of life feature that honestly, when I heard that you could do that with this thing, I was like, why isn't that just in the game in general?
Yeah.
I locked it behind a $25 little figure, which sucks because the figure is cool and I'm going to buy the figure, but I don't want to buy it for the game. I want to buy it because it's cool.
Because it's cool. Yeah.
So anyways, I don't normally get upset at stuff like that, but that is bullshit.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I know we're not allowed to criticize Nintendo because, you know, they're perfect.
That's releasing a game and then having a day one DLC that's the hardest difficulty possible.
Yeah.
That's labeled the way the game's meant to be played.
Right. Thanks, Metro.
Yeah, thanks, Metro. I was going to say Ranger mode.
Yeah.
Much. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Stephen Totillo, former editor-in-chief at Kotaku, on Twitter stated that Nintendo redacted information from the Apple Epic Games court case, stating, quote-unquote, these reflect competitively sensitive information about negotiations between Nintendo and Microsoft, unquote. A line after the redacted block of text states, in a question-answer context between the two discussers, question was, who is involved in these discussions? And the answer was, primarily the Game Pass content team and other members of gaming leadership team. So people are, of course, deducing that Nintendo and Microsoft are discussing very, very interesting things that could be announced sooner or later. But Nintendo asked to redact all that information. So
off the top of our heads, there's something What did Microsoft and Nintendo do like a year ago, year and a half ago?
So Nintendo and Microsoft have been very buddy-buddy. They made a commercial together for Minecraft, like a specialized commercial together for Minecraft. Of course, all their buddy-buddiness with Ori and the Blind Forest and the sequel, Cuphead. Like Nintendo was the first console that got Cuphead.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Besides Microsoft and there was a Xbox thing like 2 weeks ago, like Phil Spencer or whoever was on the thing, like there was a Switch front and center in the background, like, so there's a lot of talk of like Game Pass or xCloud coming to the Switch.
The Switch had a little mini sweet blazer.
Sorry, the Switch just struts out onto a stage. Xbox.
Like the background on the Switch is the Xbox. Last tidbit of the night: Chinese company Tencent has acquired 3.8% of Remedy Entertainment. That is all.
That's only 3.8%. But I don't like
3.8% too much.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Tencent.
They have their hands in a lot more things than people think. So.
Yeah, oh yeah, basically everything. But that was the other thing about Returnal. Returnal, the more I played it, the less it. When I first started playing it, I was like, oh, this feels very controlled, which is good. Mm-hmm. But the more I played and the more enemies I faced, it became the control influence became less and less, but was still there, and it felt more and more Housemarque. Which I thought was really cool. Because, like, Ex Machina is a super bullet hell.
That game is so good.
Oh, Ex Machina is freaking fun. Ex Machina is one of those games that you get into one of those grooves, and it's just like the world is just gone. and the only thing that exists is the projectiles, and you're dodging them, and the music's going. It is so good. It really, really is super underrated. Okay. Is there anything else we want to discuss? Anything else we want to talk about?
No.
All right. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post videos. Don't have an update on when the next thing is going to be, but it'll be sometime soon. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.